Hey, so welcome, folks. I'm here today with my colleague Amanda. My name is Katie Balshaw. We're both with Brampton Arts Org. I'm the program coordinator with BOW, and Amanda does our education and outreach. You can see we've coordinated today, even though we're not in the same place, our two pink sweaters for this presentation specifically. So lucky you, we showed up matching. We're here today for an information session on our program. This is its second year, Community Connects, a call for workshop proposals. So for today, I'll put up a slide deck in just a moment. I'm going to just do a brief overview of what the program is, how much money you can get, some of those details. When does the call close? Who's eligible? What are we expecting from you as applicants or as folks that may be selected to deliver some workshop programming for us? We have some past projects to share as well, some inspiration to get us thinking about what types of possibilities there could be for these workshops. And then following that, we'll go into reviewing the application itself. So we'll pull it up on screen and can talk through the different components of it. And then I imagine at the end, we'll have some time for Q&A as well. Because we're a smaller group today, we can just feel free to write in the chat. And as we're going through the presentation, as it makes sense, we may be able to stop and address a question. Otherwise, we may just come to it at the end for a Q&A period. And just so folks know, the slide deck and the recording will be shared with you all. So just if you're taking notes or want to refer back to anything, just know that that'll be there for you in the end. Okay, so with that said, I am going to share my screen now and get started. And I think the last thing I'll say too, this is the second year of the program. It's changed a little bit for folks who may have seen it last year. Last year we called it Community Presents. Now it's Community Connects. So it's pretty similar. The focus this year is more on networking and social connection. So that's one of the big changes that we made this year. Okay, so I will jump into our presentation here. And then Amanda, if there are any questions, maybe you can just hop in and let me know because I may not see them.
Sounds good.
Great. Okay, so a brief agenda for us here. So as I mentioned just before, we'll go over program details, preview the application, and then make some time for Q&A. Oh, and let me make this bigger. There we go. All right. So what is this program? This program, Community Connects, is a series of workshops for us as artists, for artists in the community in Brampton. It's really us saying, you know, giving the reins over to you folks. You know better than we do. What do you want to be leading? What do you want to see in the community? What do you want to offer? And yeah, what do you want to be in community with your peers? So we're looking for proposals specifically this year that bring folks together. And when we say workshops, you may hear me interchange that word between program or event. It's pretty loose, and we'll talk about that too. So it can be some kind of experience. Of course, there's some parameters, but I know workshop has a certain connotation, and sometimes you think of program as something totally different, but there are lots of opportunities here for this Community Connects program. And then the other important thing to note is that the workshops are also centered around knowledge sharing and skill building for artists. So in terms of the key details of the program itself, so you can apply for up to $1,250. This includes an artist fee and materials, maybe a rental fee, sort of anything that you may need to lead your workshop. This is what the fee would be that you have to play with to make it happen, to make it come to life. So we have a little bit more time now. I think it's about 2 weeks still to put in a proposal. So you have until March 3rd, which is a Sunday. And we're looking for a total of 6 workshops, just to give you some perspective. So it's always hard to pick just 6. I think last year we also had 6 or 7, but that's the number that we're able to support for this year. And then again, applications this year are going to be focused on community gathering, social connection, and networking. And then once you've got this slide deck with you and we'll look at it together, the program website and application are linked just below here, and we'll have a moment to look at that together. Okay, so these are some of the more boring details, but still important. Your eligibility. So we are specifically looking for folks that are residing in Brampton. Being a Brampton-based organization, our supports go to Brampton-based artists and are available for folks in Brampton. So that's an important component for us. You have to be 18 years or older. We're looking for artists that are proposing a workshop within their discipline. So for instance, I'm a visual artist and I work in lino cut sometimes. So for me, that would mean I'm applying for a lino cut workshop and I'm not applying to teach somebody singing because that wouldn't go very well. I don't really know very much about that. So in your application, you'll just demonstrate to us why you are the artist to be leading the workshop that you've chosen. We're looking for workshops that happen before the end of the year. So for us, we're looking at the end of November. So that's your timeline. You can propose a workshop anywhere within that time frame. And then we'll work together as the BOW team and you as the selected applicant to figure out, based on our existing program and the dates that you're available for, where we may be able to slot in your program. The workshops are delivered by the applicant. So you as the applicant are the one that's going to be delivering the project. The workshops are taking place in Brampton. They're accessible by transit. And we also ask that if you're taking your workshop or proposal to another venue, that venue is also accessible as well. So your budget is used to deliver your workshop. So that includes your artist fee, all your insurance, all your materials and other expenses. There won't be any additional budget allocated to the workshop other than the project fee. And then we've just set a minimum fee here based on this year's CARFAC rates, which for folks that don't know, CARFAC is a visual arts membership-based organization for Ontario, but also across Canada, and they set artist fees each year. So feel free to Google that, but that's what we're using as a basis for our fees here, and asking that the minimum artist fee that you pay yourself or collaborator is $500. And then, I mean, this is a relic sort of from the pandemic and COVID, but still your workshop will have to be following any region of Peel health mandates as they arise. Okay, so based on those eligibility criteria and the budget and the timelines, what kinds of things are we looking for? So specifically, we're looking for ideas and skill building that support the development of early to mid-career artists in engaging with the arts. So it's not to say that we wouldn't look at something that you're proposing for more established artists, but the core audience that we're looking for is early to mid-career folks. Additionally, like I said earlier, the projects support local. They're for local artists. There's some connection to Brampton. There's a reason why you're wanting to give back to Brampton, and there's space in your proposal to let us know, what that looks like for you. And then we also ask that the programming is a bit different than something we currently run. So you can take a look on our Eventbrite page, on our website, our Instagram as well is a great space to take a look at what we're running. So for instance, next week, Amanda is running a power hour on taxes for artists. So we're not necessarily looking to lead another tax workshop, in March, say. And if you're curious about it, feel free to reach out to us. If you're getting stuck and you see we have led something, but you think your workshop is a bit different, feel free to let us know. We're just not wanting to duplicate our resources and looking to support new initiatives that you may be interested in leading. Okay, so a couple of ideas and examples that we brainstormed. This is, of course, not everything, but just some ideas to get us started in thinking about what a proposal could be. You could do a gathering in the park, a creative writing circle, a writer's gathering. You could do portfolio sharing and review. That could be across, many kinds of disciplines. I'm sure often we think about that for visual arts, but it could be an arts critique or for any number of things. Could be a table read that you want to do. You could do a musician mixer or an open night. It could be a pop-up dance performance and a mixer attached to it at the end. You could do a poetry slam, a dance workshop and social, a film screening and social. But of course, these are for you to imagine. And like I said, all of us on the team are artists, but we are not in every discipline. So we may not know what dancers are most interested in learning about for skill development and for getting together in community. So that's what we're looking for you to propose to us. And just to give you a few more other examples from last year, which was the first year that we led this program, just put up some images of past programs to give us some ideas. So this one here is a creative direction workshop that took place in the Brampton Entrepreneur Center. So that's this, you'd see some of the yellows in the image there. That's at the Brampton Entrepreneur Center. So even just to think about venues, of course, we can't guarantee venues across the city. The Brampton Entrepreneur Center is one that we collaborate with often. Recreation centers are great to look for. There would be a fee associated with that to rent them. It's usually pretty nominal. Our space as well, located in downtown Brampton, is an option pending what our existing programming looks like. And then another example we'll see took place in a yoga studio as well. So you can get creative around where these can be as long as it's accessible by transit and a relatively accessible venue itself too. So actually maybe Amanda, since you were at this workshop, I'm going to put you on the spot, but do you want to say a few words about what it was in the context of a new proposal this year, say?
So I think this is a great example of one of the Community Presents workshops from last year that also fits within, I think, the focus of networking and community building. So this was a project by Summer Reddick Ellis, who is, I think she owns her own clothing line. And this workshop was all about creative direction. So she brought along her clothes and put the participants into groups and essentially asked them to do their own creative shoot and present their shoot at the end of the workshop. So folks got together, they came up with like the idea behind their shoot, they dressed models, they went out with their phones and cameras and like actually shot the campaign, and then came back together as a group and we all like gave feedback and were able to share our work, which was really great. Yeah, so the first picture is just everyone looking through the work that folks had done. People had actually created Instagram pages with the work they had made through that workshop. And the photo on the right is one of the participants modeling the clothes and the other members of her group just doing the shoot for her.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, and then Amanda, this one here, maybe you want to talk to us about this one from Cheyenne.
So this was a dance workshop by Cheyenne, and this was hosted at the Aura House. So Cheyenne booked out a venue. It's a yoga studio, but she worked with them to host like a yoga and dance workshop. So she started off by like leading participants through some like breathing exercises and like yoga exercises, and then led them through an entire choreographed dance, which they worked through together. And she concluded the workshop with some more like breathing techniques and yoga. So it's a mix of both, but that was also a really great workshop for like community building, just I think sharing that space together, and Cheyenne did a really wonderful job of like creating a welcoming space for all those participants. So yeah, another really good example.
Nice, thanks Amanda. And you'll see too throughout the presentation, there's been some images from some of the other workshops too. So we had zine making, we had a comic book workshop.
We had a singing workshop. Or like
so a whole bunch of stuff.
Technique.
Vocal care, yeah.
Vocal care.
Yeah.
There was also an art exhibition.
Oh yeah, in partnership with the library.
Yeah.
So, nice. Okay. So I've got here just a little bit of other inspiration. So these are things that are happening. I think these are just North American examples. Some are in New York. I won't spend too much time here, but just to say there's a lot of interesting things happening and ideas to draw from. So the She Said Gallery is an example from Toronto, where they do pop-up exhibitions in places like laundromats. So just to think through, venues that we may not think of as venues. Why not go to a laundromat? Why not approach a restaurant? Whatever it is, it could be a possibility for something or other that you may want to lead. There's an example of free little art galleries that I think are across maybe the GTA. The Ressemblage Collective is a collective that does film and video screenings. So that's an interesting model if you're a filmmaker that you may want to check out. Brackish is an example from Brooklyn in New York, where they incorporate all different kinds of art forms into an ongoing concert series. This example is a bit of a wild card, but did you know that renting a shipping container for a month is only $189? So I'm sure there would be some figuring out to do in terms of where, like what business could you partner with, what parking lot could you perhaps put a shipping container in? But there are ways to dream big and sort of maybe perhaps meet in a middle ground. So those are just some ideas that we've thought about and have seen. Okay, so in terms of what's expected of you in leading this workshop in partnership with us at Brampton Arts Org. So the first is we would expect that you are going to be delivering this workshop within the project timeline that we've agreed upon together and within the budget that we both agreed upon. We would ask that you promote the project on your social media and within your networks. Likely, you're the best person with the connections to the folks that you're trying to reach. And we would, love the opportunity to work together to reach those folks that may not necessarily be in our network. We will be in regular communication together. There'll be a debriefing session at the end, just so we know for next time, what could go better, what went really well. And then there'll be a brief 1 to 2 page closeout report too, just to track some of the metrics in terms of who showed up at your workshop. And again, following the debrief, just to capture some of those details. Okay, and then I'm sure many of us are curious around how do we select these projects? How does that happen? So all of our calls have selection panels attached to them, and they're made up of local folks in the community working in that discipline or in that field, and can speak to that expertise. So in terms of the selection criteria for this call in particular, we'll be looking, one, for that connection to Brampton and to the communities that the applicant is seeking to serve. We're looking at the artistic experience. So again, like I said at the beginning, are you leading this workshop in your artistic discipline? What are some of the skill sets that you have to be leading this workshop? And then project feasibility. So is the budget realistic for your project? Have you proposed so I think the workshops are 3 to 4 hours maximum. Has what you propose actually look like more like a 10-hour project or something like that? So making sure that those logistics make sense. Is the audience the right type of audience for the workshop that you've proposed? And then we're looking again for projects that we haven't previously run and that support mid-career artist development. And then we do have some prioritization for our workshops as well. And then the last thing to say about the selection panel is that it's made up of your peers. So we put out a call for assessors each year. We'll be re-releasing one for 2024. It hasn't gone out yet, but that's where we look to select folks to be on our panels. So you're talking to folks, or artists like you in your application. So just to remember, it's not just folks from nowhere. Okay, so we've made our way now to the application, and I wonder if I'll just pause briefly if anybody has a question. Feel free to unmute yourself as well if you'd like.
We had a couple questions in the chat, Katie, which I was able to share some answers, but we can go through them now. So you had a question about space and if venues are available, and if we provide venues. So I would say that like we have some spaces available, like Katie, you mentioned our office, depending on our schedule and availability, but we also really encourage you to like look at spaces in the community, look at libraries, look at community centers, and we can connect you with those folks if that helps. And I also linked our creative space catalog, which is essentially we compiled the list of resources of venues and spaces in Brampton that you could use for creative activities. So that might be a good resource for folks. And then another question, Katie, we had, how long should a workshop ideally be? Is it meant to be a single event or a series of events?
So I believe we say in the call, it's a maximum of 3 to 4 hours. We have had somebody propose last year, we had a 2-part zine making workshop. So it could be a 2-part workshop series, say. So they had 2 hours at the first start, and then they came back together once folks had created a bit of their zine and then finished the zine in person, and folks were able to use our printer to do that. I would say too that it could be a part of an existing initiative or a larger scale idea that you have that needs more budget, but you could use this budget for one of the workshops. So say you can't fund your whole project with it, but we wouldn't turn a project away just because we weren't supporting the whole thing. We would be happy to support a component of it as long as it met the parameters of the program itself. But feel free, whoever asked that, if that's clear or you want to follow up, feel free to, go ahead, Sarah, if that's you.
Thank you. I wasn't the person who asked the question, but I
Hi,
have.
Sorry. Hi, this is Manisha. I asked a question and I got the perfect reply. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Thanks, Manisha. Okay, go ahead, Sarah.
I was wondering, for the workshops, are they supposed to be in the time span of a week, or can they be in a month, or it just needs to be completed before next year?
So I guess, I mean, that could be a good question to follow up with us on, like depending what it is that you're thinking about. Because with the workshops being up to a maximum of 4 hours, they could be spread out. They don't have to just be one block of 4 hours. So for example, the zine workshop was across, I think, 2 or 3 weeks. So they had one 2-hour meeting, and then 2 weeks later, they had another 2-hour meeting. And of course, it depends on our scheduling and availability too within our programs. So I don't know if that's a bit vague, Sarah, but feel free to follow up too if you had a specific thing in mind.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anything else in the chat, Amanda?
Don't think so. I think that's it so far. Someone asked if the workshops can be art skill based or business type skills. I think it could be both as long as it's still related to the creative sector. And it still encourages folks to come together.
Yeah.
Hi there. Actually, I did ask a question. This is Nawab.
Go ahead, Nawab.
So yeah, I just wanted to ask, because when I was seeing the application as well, so there's check boxes if you're a Brampton resident or your business is Brampton based. So if one of those category we qualify, is that still be enough to qualify for the to be in the application?
I think it would depend on the type of offering that you're offering to. So I think
Okay.
you need to write in your application, like, why is this important to be offered in Brampton? How is it going to support Brampton creatives? What's the experience that folks would gain? So I think
Okay.
that would be the piece that the selection panel would be looking for.
Okay, and can the workshop, as you said, for 2 or 3 hours, let's say example, could be catered to different audience? For example, let's say it's over a 3 hour workshop we keep, but every hour we are catering to different audience.
I think it could, if you had
Okay,
a strong
audience I meant
rationale
is,
for it.
yeah. For example, if we talk about a dance workshop, right?
Mhm.
And we're talking about one beginners, one intermediate, or one advanced. So can that be considered in a way of a 3 hours workshop where the first hour is catered to anybody with the beginner knowledge, or the second hour is catered to anybody with an intermediate knowledge or any past experience? So can that be still considered as a, or the preference would be more given to example like a 1 hour or 2 hours workshop to just a certain audience?
I think that could work.
Okay.
As long as you're demonstrating that like you're capable of having like that 1 hour is enough of an interaction for folks. So
Okay.
that would be all
Yeah.
that I would say. So if that's what you think is best and you're able to say why,
Makes sense.
then I think
Makes
that
sense.
would work. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay. Okay, so maybe we'll turn our attention now to the application, and then we can close out with some more space for questions. So what I've got up on the screen here, this is sort of the bird's eye view of the application itself, and I'll open it up and we can look at it together on the screen. So it starts with, we have eligibility screening that we talked about earlier. We ask for your contact information, and then the meat of the application itself is about your program or your workshop. So we ask you for both a short and a long description of your project. We ask for a budget. We ask for all of the details. So that's your date, the time, number of participants, the age, location, community benefit. And then the following piece is your artistic experience. So that includes your artistic background, any previous experience, and then support materials. So we'll go through some of these bits in more detail and talk through what we're looking for when we ask some of these questions. But I'm just going to pull up the web page here. So this here is the overall web page where we've got all of the details for the program here. And then if you scroll down to the bottom, we've got the applicant form. And so here's the applicant form here. So again, these details are the same from the web page that show up here. So we've got our eligibility screening, your contact information, voluntary self-identification. And then here we have an about the project. So you see there's some word counts here, and you won't be able to go over them. And keeping to these word counts is really helpful for the jury to get some clear, concise information to really be able to know what it is that you're trying to do right away, especially when folks are reviewing a whole bunch of applications at one time. So if your long description, you are welcome to have project contributors. We just ask here that you tell us a little bit about them and why they would be involved in helping you run the workshop. Are you planning to run the workshop in person or online? Some details around the minimum number of folks that you would need to lead the workshop. What would be the maximum? What's your estimate of folks? And I should say too that listed on the webpage, I may have forgot it in the presentation, is that we're looking for ideally workshops that support 20 folks or more. It could be smaller than that if you had a good reason for it, but that's sort of the number that we're looking to attract in putting on these workshops, is a minimum of about 20 folks. Here you can let us know your preferred workshop start date, and as much as we're able, we'll try and follow that. Pending when folks are putting in their preferred dates and who's selected, it may need to shuffle around a bit, but we'll try our best to accommodate that. So here we have a maximum of 4 hours per project. So just to give us a bit more information, we ask you what time of day. Is this a weekend? Is this an evening? Do you have a preferred month for it? And then we ask you here, any outreach and marketing tools that you may use? Could that be your own social media? Do you have, Are there other organizations that you know of that we may not know of that could help support you in getting the word out for the workshop? An age group for the workshop that you're targeting, any materials and equipment. Whatever we have at BOW, we're happy to share. So this is sort of why we're asking you this question, just to know, you know, if you're like, oh, I need a projector, I need markers, I need whatever it is, it's possible that we may have it and we can figure that out as we go in terms of what we may be able to provide. Here, we ask for you to put in your budget. So you can write it into this box, or you could link to a Google Sheet or something like that with the budget as well. Here we ask you, why are you proposing to work with this community or in the neighborhood? And what's the benefit for those folks? Here, coming back to this question around space, we ask you if you have a space in mind. So we write here that we can support you in finding a venue. Of course, we can't guarantee anything, but happy to support via our connections through the library, city facilities, parks, and things like that. And then, of course, our space is probably the easiest one to accommodate workshops in, depending on what other programming we have going on. Then we have a section here on your artistic experience. So here we're asking for your biography. So just telling us who you are. A little bit more information here about your artistic background. If you didn't have space earlier in the application, tell us something we may have missed that you'd like for us to know. You have space to do so here. And then we have space for you to input your support materials. So I'm going to go back to the presentation here, and we can go through some of these components in a bit more detail. Okay. So in terms of your project description, what we're looking for, and this sort of applies to many of the answers too, but really something that's clear and concise, that's, you know, written in simple language that's easy to digest. The word count is there to support you. And, you know, you really want the selection panel to easily be able to get exactly what you're proposing. Starting from your short description to then your long description, making sure they're easy to follow, it's clear, and we know exactly what you're trying to do and why. In terms of the project budget, so this is a typo from last year, you have 1,200, so that's incorrect. And what are some of the things that you can include in your budget? So some of those things are your artist fees, insurance you'll be required to get for your workshop, any materials that you may need to purchase. Do you need to rent any equipment? Those are the kinds of things you can include in your budget. And just for some context, here's some budgets from last year, just to give you an idea of what folks are proposing and what some of their costing was. Of course, it's going to be different for everyone. Here we have an artist. We have on the left-hand side, we have an artist fee. This person needed some props. They also needed clothing. I believe this was for the creative direction workshop, and their insurance is pretty affordable here. So their workshop came in just under $1,000. And then on the right-hand side, we have a venue rental fee. This artist is a dancer, so they've used the Canadian Alliance for Dance Artists for their fee structure. So that's really great information for us to know that they're following whatever that fee structure is that exists. They put aside some money for postering. So that's something that we as Brampton Arts Org and you may be able to apply for, or sorry, collaborate on. So you may not necessarily need a budget for marketing. Poster printing, and then they have an insurance fee here. So I think in the end, we were able to suggest a different insurance broker called Duo, D-U-U-O, through the cooperators. That's substantially cheaper than what this artist originally budgeted for. So we're here to collaborate with folks too. If you are selected, there's a lot of conversation we can have around what works, what we may need to be able to shuffle around too. So that's just an idea of some budgets. In terms of writing to us how your project will benefit the community and the audiences that you've selected, some of the questions to ask yourself in answering this question would be, who is the project serving? Why is it needed? Why at this time? Why does it make sense for Brampton Arts.org to lead this workshop in collaboration with you? We have linked in the application our mission and mandate, so I would encourage you to take a look at that and really consider, why our goals align with yours in leading this workshop, and clearly identifying that in the application. And I would say too, to really hone in on who your audience is. It's one thing to say this is for everyone, but who is everyone and why everyone? So I'd really encourage you to think about, who specifically is this workshop for? It can be for multiple types of people, but really identifying and writing out who those people would be. Okay, so your artistic background and your bio. So this is another good one, like the project descriptions, to be clear and concise about. Let us know who you are. Let the panel know who you are too. If you have any education, any recent professional experience, and not to scare anyone off, you don't need to have had tons of experience or education or arts background necessarily to put in an application and be selected. But are there any kinds of experiences that you have that would make you the right person to be leading these workshops? And then in your artist statement, so this is the space here where you're writing about what you explore in your work. And we've also linked a resource in the application too from an old Power Hour that you can take a look at to really get clarity on how to write these if you need some support. So again, using clear language, it's really helpful to have a friend or somebody who's not an artist or even not in your field to review your application. And if they can understand it, then that's a good thing. When I'm writing my own grants, I love to do that. I love to have someone, a family member, my mom, a partner, whoever it is, that doesn't have any clue what you're doing. And if they get it, then that's probably a good sign. And then this came from X-Space on some workshop that they were doing. They said all killer, no filler. So I feel like that's a good statement to live by too. To get rid of that fluff, it's easy to see through it. And especially when you're reviewing lots of applications, really just getting to the point is the best thing that you can do. Okay, so your support materials. So this can really be anything. It's up to you in terms of what you think best demonstrates to us in the selection panel why you're proposing this workshop and why you're the right person to do it. So it could be images of your artwork. It could be script samples. It's going to depend on what discipline you're applying into. Music scores, poems. Are there images of you facilitating? Do you have a video and audio recording? Is there a reference letter? A link to your website or a web page where you previously ran a workshop before, testimonials, something like that. The key thing here is just to make sure that your materials really demonstrate a clear connection to what you're leading, and that we can see it right away. So we're not left thinking like, oh, they applied as a singer-songwriter, but they want to lead a music workshop, but they're attaching their visual artwork. You don't want to leave us with any questions. So I think that's it for the application overview itself. And perhaps I'll pause here and stop sharing. And if there are any questions or discussion that we want to have together, we can do so now. And then you've got my email here too. I'll put it in the chat in just a moment. So if following this presentation, you still have some questions, feel free to reach out to us. Still about 2 weeks left before the application. So we just ask that you give us, some time. You're not reaching out to us in the 2 days to that when the application is due, we wouldn't be able to accommodate. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing. And I'll maybe pass it to you, Amanda, to see if anything's been happening in the chat, and then we can open up for discussion.
Sure. Okay, so since our last little question period, we had a few questions in the chat. D2 is asking if there's an age limit to the participants. Can the workshop be for children, or can children be part of the project? Say there's no age limit, and kids can totally be part of the project as long as that makes sense for the work that you're doing, and you can talk about that in your workshop description. Kenneth asked if insurance is required in our budget, and I just replied that like insurance is required for all of these workshops and that the budget can cover the fee. So essentially, yeah, like we will require insurance, but the budget that we provide can cover that cost for you. Yeah, that's really all that's in the chat that I can see. Looks like Afosa has a question here.
Hello.
Hello.
Good day, everyone. My name is Efosa. I'm speaking from Brampton here. I'm a musician, and I'm kind of unprepared for this, but I think it's a great opportunity. And the deadline is in 2 weeks, right?
Yes, it's March
I,
3rd. Yeah.
I do have an idea for a program, but being that I'm a recent immigrant in Canada, I just got into Canada October. There are a lot of modalities I might like to correspond with and check, like how to get a venue, the price for a venue, how to get some equipment, and then promotions, So can one put in a speculation, without providing an actual date when the event will be held, and just be like, oh, I have a proposal for this, but there's no date yet because I still have to do some background work.
Yes, I mean, certainly. We're not expecting that anyone, knows for sure their venue, and especially because I assume we'll probably be working with a lot of folks to support in figuring out what that venue is, whether it's in our space or somewhere else. I would say that the venue would just have to, be realistic within what you're proposing. So, I mean, I don't necessarily know of any $1 million venues to rent in Brampton, but I would encourage you to do, like, say there's a banquet hall that you want to rent, maybe call them and say, what would the fee be for me to rent this? And if their fee is $1,000, that's almost the whole budget for this program, and that wouldn't be a good fit. But say that there's a rec room and it costs $50 an hour, and that could fit within your budget, and you don't know, if it would be available or not, that would be something that would make sense to put into your application.
Okay. Say somewhere like the Snare Grove Community Center.
Yeah, that's a great one. I think that one's like $25 an hour to rent. So that would be a good option, and you can write that in your application if that's your preferred venue. And then in your budget, you can say at this workshop is going to be 2 hours long, so that's $50, and that would be great.
Thank you. Awesome.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Kenneth.
Hey, all right. So this is probably a ridiculous question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. So let's just say we get granted, the opportunity to present a program. How far are we allowed to go in regards to like upselling during the event? Like, let's say, for example, I did like, a musical show or, a poem or, a poetic reading, open mic kind of thing. And, wanted to get like a liquor license so we could sell alcohol at the events while we did, that kind of stuff. Is that something that we can incorporate, or is that frowned upon?
I think that's a tricky one to answer. Okay. I think we would probably lean on the side of no, but it would depend, because I think the impetus for the programs is that they're open to all to attend. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily all ages. I think you would need a good reason, like rationale, like why that liquor license is appropriate and what would it add to the event itself.
Okay.
So if you could make that rationale, then I think it would make sense, perhaps, and it could if it fit in your budget too. But keep in mind that that's not necessarily like programming that Bao runs,
Hmm.
if that makes
No,
sense.
it makes sense, but I just ask.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Oh, good. So I see Amanda put Snellgrove, the booking form, in the chat. And the other good one that we can put in the chat now too is just the facilities booking for the city overall for rec centers. I think Snellgrove is probably going to be the most affordable, but recreation centers across the city would be relatively affordable too, depending on what type of room and time you're looking for.
Katie, are you finding that link right now?
Yes.
Otherwise I can look. Okay, thank you. I was gonna say, I think in Snellgrove too, you can ask them to add insurance to your booking, which I thought was kind of helpful. That's an option further down. You can buy insurance through the city. So that's kind of nice. Otherwise, I think this is the other insurance company that Katie, you had mentioned in the chat duo. I just linked it there as well.
Yeah, there's tons of options for insurance. That one I found is generally pretty affordable, and it's like takes under 5 minutes to get a quote online. So that's an easy one to look at. And if you're applying as an organization, it's likely you may already have insurance, and so that could be used. You wouldn't necessarily need anything additional. Okay, well, I'll hold the floor for another moment or two if folks have questions. Maybe I'll just give us 30 seconds or so to think about it. And then if there isn't anything, we can close out, but I welcome any additional questions. Okay, well, maybe that's it. But like we've said, we're available. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out. And then early next week, if not this afternoon, if we're able to, we'll send out the slides and this recording from the Zoom so you can have that to look over again. I see a thumbs up, which is nice. Okay, good. But yes, we're really excited about this program. It was one of our favorites last year to see these workshops being led and to read them. It's such a joy and a pleasure to see what folks are interested in leading and then to be able to put them on as a part of Brampton Arts Organization. So appreciate all the time that you've taken today over lunch to think about this with us. And as well, if you do decide to put together an application, would just like to thank you for your time in doing that as well. Okay, bye everybody. Have a good rest of your day. Happy weekend.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thank you. Have a good day.